Today's podcast is all about the different types of books that have made an impression on our lives, whether it be fiction, nonfiction, but definitely books that have made an impression on us in our journey as creatives, in our journey as independent thinkers, and absolutely individuals who are striving to integrate wisdom that we hear from sages throughout history. Yeah, that's what we're all about today.
hmm
So, who would like to start?
So I'll start. I wanted to talk a little bit about the first book that really drew me in or made me want to read. And that was actually Black Beauty. And I received it, I think I was either 4 or 5 years old. And I received the adult version, hardback with a beautiful cover, on my birthday. But I didn't even know how to read yet.
Oh,
And the story was deemed a little too long to be read like as a bedtime story at this point in my life. So I had this book, this unattainable piece of knowledge that I just completely wanted to have, to read, to understand, and I couldn't. So that was like my first, before that book, I had only obviously at the age of like 4 to 5. I think I was 5, but I know I wasn't 6 yet. But I had only had small books or like small stories in larger storybooks like my grandparents or my parents would read to me as a child. And like that was my book. And it was huge and it was thick and it was embossed. And
oh,
man, did I want to read that book.
hmm
So
that's
it took many
fascinating.
a year before I could actually open it up and know how to read it myself. But I think that that was my very, very first, um, the first time that a book impacted me in that way as like an inaccessible treasure, something that
Mm.
that made me feel like there's this a whole other part of a world that other people have access to that I didn't quite have access to yet, which might have made me want to read it even more.
Mm. Do you think the visual was also important, Jackie?
Oh yeah, I think it was hardcover. It was a
Mm.
beautifully done. I think it had the gilded pages.
Mm.
I
Oh,
mean, it was like
wow.
a collector's edition type of thing, and I had gotten that one and Heidi. For some reason, Heidi didn't like entice me as much as Black Beauty, and
hmm
like Black Beauty was just like my book. Like I needed to
Hmm.
be reading that.
Hmm. Wow, that's cool. No, that's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And how about you girls?
Well, as you were talking, it made me think of, it's not the book that I want to share, but it made me think of when I was younger, my mom always bringing me to the library and just the feeling of the books, like
Mm.
they would often have like the plastic around them or the little, the pockets. And I just like, I just feel like I fell in love with books there because it was just, we would always have these books and then the school fairs where I would get to purchase the books. Oh, they not the best. Oh, the Scholastic book fairs. Oh my goodness. And
Mm.
I feel like I would always buy Clifford the Big Red Dog. Like that was my go-to. But excuse me. But the book that probably influenced me the most, and this is hold on guys, sorry. This is not classy, but I have really bad allergies and it's like then I can't talk sometimes. But
That's what mine did.
yeah, so the book
Mm.
that I want to talk about is by Paulo Coelho and it's called The Alchemist, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard about. But I remember I was about 24 and I was working at a salon and I had just broken up with my first boyfriend who like it was just so devastating to me for this like relationship to end. And I remember going to the bookstore and just being like, you know what, I'm gonna get a book because like the downtime at the salon would be like, you wouldn't have somebody, let's say, on a certain day coming in for a while. So I was the receptionist, so I would just like read at the front unless someone called or came in or something. And I had just picked up this random book and didn't even look at whether it was like I thought it was fiction, which it is kind of like I guess it's sort of fiction, but I didn't even look at what it was about. I just kind of was just like, oh, this book looks good.
Mhm.
Start reading it, and it's it started to just as I'm going along, it's this kid going on an adventure essentially. And of course, there's so much deeper meaning in it, and there were so many lessons. By the time I got to the end, I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was at the salon and I had just gotten to the last page, and I was like, oh my goodness, like this is about this, and this is about, following your dreams and listening to your dreams and your real dreams and listening to the messages that come through them. And it was so life altering. It was like the first thing that I had ever read that was life altering, where it was like almost like I guess like a divine intervention. Like I was here and then I read this book and then I was all of a sudden here. I was just in a completely different place. And I've never ever gone back to like the old place. Like it was such a shift.
Mm.
And so that book is literally one of my favorite books. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I started reading it. But I pick it up, I've read it a few times afterwards and just felt like, obviously like I already know what's coming, so the magic isn't as amazing, but he's just a great writer. He is poetic, and the way that he speaks about women is uh so genuine and so full of like kindness and compassion. He's just one of the best writers, and I've been so impacted by his writing, so I wanted to share that one.
Oh, that's
Excellent.
good stuff. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very, very much. Isn't it funny how books seem to find us?
Yeah.
They seem to find us. I know when I sat and thought about what we were going to do today, I kept trying to pick a favorite book, as Jackie had mentioned. I mean, I have so many favorites and everything. But one of the things that I thought about was the progression of myself as a listener and then a reader. And I realized that it was what my mother read to me that invited me into that path of being immersed in reading.
Hmm.
And when I was little, my mother used to get us the books Bobbsey Twins.
Mm,
And she used, and I just have so many memories of her sending, we had a young man that lived on the street, but I mean, I'm little. And my mother would send him, I think she would give him 50 cents. He'd run down the block and get a book and at the store, and it was the Bobbsey twins, and she'd come up and she'd read it to us. So that was just really cool. And then from there, becoming like an independent reader was when I got to school, and then it was Nancy Drew.
mm, hmm.
And I just loved going into the library at school and picking up the Nancy Drew books, and that was just really cool. But the first book as a young adult that I really jumped into was 20,000 Leagues Under the
Mm,
Sea. That book, I can remember the day that I went upstairs in my room. I remember, I mean, it's silly the things that we remember about certain things. And I had an apple. I remember sitting with this apple, and I looked at the apple and I looked at the book, and I disappeared.
mhm,
Once I started reading the book, I wasn't there anymore. I was so immersed
mhm,
in the visionary things that, Jules Verne had written about. And certainly now at this advanced stage, I understand so much more of the book than I did then. But it was just a fascinating read. Just
mhm.
this whole different world that I didn't know anything about. And it was just magical. Really, it was magical. And I never thought back then, because I was in high school when I was reading that, I never thought that I believe now that I connected with it. Excuse me. I believe now that I connected with it only because it was so much about water, and I'm Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
So water is just such a big, important thing to me and everything. So 20,000 Leagues was, Under the Sea was one of the first books that I think I actually stepped into that world. So yeah, it's exciting. I can still feel that excitement and chomping that apple.
It's funny you mention that because all the books that you're mentoring, my mom was always giving me the books that she read. So I
Mm.
read all the Nancy Drew books, like
Mhm.
at a
Hmm.
younger age. And then I also read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Like I would read everything. She would give me books and she'd be like, "Oh, this book's so good. You need to read this one." And I would read it and I have her old Nancy Drew books
Oh,
that she
wow.
had. Yeah, I still have them. Of course, some of them are tattered. And then she got like the new hardcover ones after a while.
Hmm.
But yeah, like all those books were just, it's so funny that you mentioned that because as you're saying it, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and I'm like, maybe this is why, like, I love writing fantasy because I love to be in that other world. Not that I don't want to be here, but that I love to be in that other world. And
Hmm.
like those characters are just like unfolding, the scenes unfolding, and you're just lost in that place, right? So you can
Hmm.
get there reading or writing, you know?
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I
it
know.
is. It's Go ahead, honey.
Oh, I was going to say a couple of things that both of you have said about libraries and about, the immersive nature of books. I was also having like a ton of trouble trying to think of like my favorite book because I think every book I've ever read is my favorite book. I had this list going, like this running list, and it's funny because as some of our viewers know, I live overseas. I live in France, and I do come home regularly, usually in the summertime. And the last time I was there, we were going through like boxes and stuff with my parents because they were trying to, they don't need all my stuff. I couldn't take it here with me. There was like a lot of going through stuff, and I happened upon like not just a box, like boxes and boxes and boxes of books. Um, like hundreds and hundreds of books that I've read and I found ones from when I was really little, like little paperback type books.
Mm.
And as it turned out, I probably have pictures somewhere. As it turned out, as a child, I would cross out the author's name and
Oh my
put
goodness.
my name
That's
on
funny.
there, like, with like the backwards J.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
also I created my own library. In the back of all of my books, I had a card and I like put I think I wanted to be a librarian. I still want to be a librarian. I love to be a librarian on top of being a writer, of course. But yes, I was trying to lend out my books to people, and I think I was like lending them out to like stuffed animals and stuff. I don't know.
It's so cute.
Loved
That's
it too. And I remember I grew up in the Philadelphia area and there was a park that had this really great playground for kids. And it was a little bit further, it was like on the outskirts of Philadelphia. And so we wouldn't go there all the time, but we would go every so often. And there was this big house. It was like a manor on a hill. And I was like 3 and 4, and I just wanted to go to the manor on the hill. And it turned out it was a library. It was like a private library on the hill. And I don't know why I was like obsessed with that place. Whenever we would go to play on the playground, I always wanted to like go up to the library. So it's like kind of like Anna Marie was saying, like how books call you in a certain way, or like things are put into your life or into your path,
Right.
I'd say. And I mean, why would a 3-year-old want to go up to a house on a hill?
hmm
Hmm.
You know, kind of odd.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's magical. It is. It's magical. And books just have that certain frequency.
hmm
Should I
hmm
pull that in? They do. They just have a certain frequency that
hmm
is just you can't put it into words. why it calls you. I know one of the books that I read as an adult was A Woman of Independent Means. And I liked that because it's written in letter form.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fascinated with letters, first of all. I mean, I like history very, very much. But this whole book is written in a letter form, and it shows the progression of what she goes through as a woman who is initially dependent, and then just because of life circumstances, how she has to make the steps towards independence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all through her perspective as far as she goes into much different detail than you would, in her letters. It's very, very personal. And that book was very meaningful for me.
Yeah.
Meaningful. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, it's so you guys are talking. First of all, Jackie, when you come home, maybe we should seek out this library and go to it.
Yes, yeah, I'll find out if it's still open and
Yeah.
definitely.
We'll go there and take a picture. Two, it's so funny as you guys are talking, it's like a flood of books are just coming into my mind. And there is one book that is a fiction novel that is literally my hands down favorite fiction novel of all time. And it's called Timeline by Michael Crichton. I don't know if you guys have ever read this, but it's about this a group of people who basically it's almost like an Outlander type book where they get
Oh.
transported to another time. They go into a medieval time. So they're like here and then they get transported into a medieval time. So they're in this other realm, which is probably why I like to write this stuff. But I mean, this book is like literally the best book I've ever read in my whole life. And then they did the movie. And I don't, everybody knows the books are better than the movies, but
Hmm.
occasionally you watch the movie. Like the Harry Potter movies are great. You watch the movie, you go, wow, these are great. People will be like, oh, but, this is missing or this is missing, and that's true. But the movie overall is still good. But the book timeline and the movie timeline there's such a gap. I mean, the book was just the richest most amazing experience. You just get lost in it and you are there. And the movie just didn't do it for me. But uh yeah, so I just thought of that when you were talking. I'm like, oh my goodness, I forgot about this book and it's literally my favorite book. So, anywho.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question for you both. When you're looking into, I know Anna Marie, you said you like the letters and that you really are into history. Are you also interested in nonfiction? Is it fiction? Is it like more plot driven stuff that interests you both? Or is it more character driven? Like
Yeah.
what inspires you these days? And also, I think probably the progression from being a child reader to now, it's probably gone through phases. So I'd like to know a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, being a Pisces, I go in
Mm.
both directions. So I am interested both in fiction and nonfiction, and I'm a part of two book groups. And one only reads fiction, and the other
Okay.
one only reads nonfiction. So I'm lucky enough to have both worlds. I am. I think right now, the nonfiction that really made an impact on my life was The Artist's Way.
Mm-hmm.
Julia Cameron, to me, she's like a fairy that walks around with that magic wand. She just lives, breathes, oozes creativity. I
Yeah.
mean, she loves being an artist, and the respect and the understanding that she has for artists is unbelievable. Yeah, it really is. And yeah, so The Artist's Way. And it's funny because um, I I walked into an office, and they had a bookshelf, and The Artist's Way was on the bookshelf. And I thought, oh, that looks cool. So I took it off and I started to read it when I was in this office. And when I left that office, I went right to the bookstore. Yeah, it was it her stuff is just outstanding. So to answer your question, it's fiction and nonfiction. Yeah, I have to say I like them equally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I do.
I think I would have to agree with that as well. And maybe it's because I'm a Pisces moon. I don't know. But I think that I wasn't very much into nonfiction so much for a long time. And I think that when I read The Alchemist, like that turned my life into it just changed my life because after that there were a series of events that basically brought me to reading nonfiction regularly.
Mhm.
So, like The Power of Now and all these
Oh
different
yeah.
books. And actually, I can name that point in time when my life did that. I was acting and I was working with Mike Lemon, who has since passed away, but he was a big casting director in Philadelphia, very nice man. And the way that he would teach us in this acting course was to bring in these awakened elements. So he would talk about Deepak Chopra's, it was the I forget exactly which one it is, but I think it was The Secrets of Success. And then he brought in The Power of Now, and it was just like those books changed my life. And if I did not go to that class, I don't think I would have gotten that transformation.
Mhm.
But so I loved, that. But I was thinking, Jackie, because you and I we both went to college at the same place. And one of the books that really transformed me, though, was Edith Hamilton's Mythology. Did you have to read that one? I'm
I think
sure
I did
you did. But it
read
just
that.
like it was a book that for whatever reason, kept going back to. It was mythology. I mean, it was all about like Greek mythology, but it was like just the way it was written was just really inviting. And it wasn't a
Mhm.
book that I would have typically picked up, but we had to use it, but I just really enjoyed it. So that was
Right.
another book that influenced me to, because I'm pretty sure it was her. I don't remember if it was just the stories or if it was like her commentary or something, but I really love that. But yeah, so I think that I enjoy them equally as well. Now there are periods where I go through just really into reading fiction and I'm not reading any nonfiction at all. I'm just like stuck in
Hmm.
these novels and in these worlds. And then I'll just go from that and go into like nonfiction and be like trying to better my life and trying to, awaken more and all this stuff. And so I'll like go
Hmm.
into this person, whoever this person is, then I'll go back into this person. And I do feel like they're two people that are
Right,
just, you know,
right. Yeah.
um, but yeah. So how about you? What do you think, Jackie?
I'm definitely fiction. I do enjoy nonfiction from time to time, but usually more like in article form because my
Hmm.
attention span on nonfiction is not the greatest.
Mhm.
Or I would have to do like listening to something in
Mm-hmm.
nonfiction because I do find that I stray. Whereas with the fiction, I just, I love all types of fiction, all types of fiction. That's why I think I really can't say that I have read a book that I don't like because like in the beginning, I was totally plot driven based. Like I liked quick moving or surprising plot twists and things like that. And then one of the books that I wanted to mention today was one of the books that really changed the way that I was thinking about writing and reading was The Visibles by Sarah Shepard. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if Sarah Shepard is better known for her young adult stuff, and this was an adult book. And she's better known for the Pretty Little Liars
Mm-hmm.
series,
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
which is how I heard of her in the first place because I was like obsessed with that
Yeah, me
TV
too.
series. God, I wanted to be like all of them.
Hmm.
Um, and when I read that book, it was so beautiful on a line level. Like the sentences were just like they blew me away. And I was like, I don't, the book itself, I remember really liking it, and it had to do a lot with like obsessive thought processes. And it could have been a nonfiction, the way it was written. It was written from the viewpoint of a girl whose father had mental illness, and she's
Mm-hmm.
going through like in the whole concept basically was that she had a substitute teacher who said something that like really jarred her way of thinking, saying that like you are your genes, and that the
Mm.
genes that are inside of you are kind of what are going to dictate how you will become. And since she has this father with mental illness and her mother has left, and so basically she only really knows her father, she starts to like kind of harp on this idea like, am I going to end up like that? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm.
book was not plot driven at all. Like I looked when I was coming on here, I wanted to make sure that I had like the title and stuff right. And I think it has like 2 stars, and most people are like, this book
Oh,
has like makes no sense. It has no plot line, and it does, but it doesn't at the same time. It was just like the way the thought process, and it really goes into detail about this person and their personal journey without really giving like there are things that happen in the book for sure, but I can't even really, I mean, it was one of my favorites. I read it twice. I know
Mm-hmm.
I read it
mm.
twice, maybe three
Mm.
times. And I still can't really tell you what it what it was about.
You're like, I just know that it impacted me, and that's the
It's it's just so beautifully written, and like
hmm
the way that the sentences are turned in such of a way that it's like every sentence is beautiful.
hmm
And yeah, so I think that that really impacts me a lot when I hit a book that not only the storyline is good, but the words really are
Mhm.
touching, and the way that the words are
Mhm.
written, like that's become like my obsession with reading and writing. Like when I write a sentence, sometimes I want to redo it like 80 times because I want my stuff to be like that stuff.
That magic.
So
And
Yeah.
you do have your writing is like that. It's very rich.
thank
And
you.
I when I read it, I'm always like, oh my goodness, how did she think of that? Because I'm like, the dog walked to the yeah. That's like my sentences are like whatever. But um it's funny you mentioned every time you guys are talking now, I'm thinking of these books like Pretty Little Liars was hands down one of like it was such a great series. And your question when you were like, what drives you? I think it's funny, like as I probably once I discovered the world of like romantasy, like now that that's like one of my favorite to read, for multiple reasons. Anyway, but the point is that I do love the plot. I'm a big plot person. Like I I just think as a writer, probably like I like to have a storyline that makes sense and the characters are developing, well. And if like just with plot, it's like um sometimes I'll read stuff and I'll just be like, well, this character is just that same old, like there's no um there's no like real gro not even growth, but like this person, like let's say it was like a female character. She came in like blaring, angry, ready to go. I'm like, I like to see somebody kind of change. And
Mhm.
um I think that's why like I like to write my characters like that too. And
You do a
and
great
and
job with
change
that.
into yeah, like whoever they're gonna be. But so yeah, so that I do pay attention to that as I'm like reading. Like, is this just this? And it's not necessarily like a flat character, but it's like a character that is too maybe even too stereotypical. I don't even know. I don't even know how I would classify that, but I like to see differences in characters, and I like to see a really good plot. So.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm going to sound silly when I say this about characters, but one of my favorite children's books is James and the Giant Peach.
Mhm.
So
I I just love every talking about writing specific lines and everything. James and the Giant Peach just is so rich in all the different characters.
Mhm.
An earthworm, a centipede, Miss Spider. I mean, it's really a very good book. It really
Mhm.
is. And just the way they get themselves into all these different situations, and if they have humor. So I have to say that's one of my favorites. It really is. And then when I move into the mystical, magical with things that are said and you don't really know what it is until you yourself as the reader um, begin to have those aha moments, was like The Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah, I was just thinking of A Wrinkle in
Yeah,
Time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Actually only read that for the first time when Anna Marie told me that I should read that last
mhm,
summer, I guess.
yeah.
Oh,
I hadn't
okay.
read it. Yeah,
Isn't
never.
it isn't it magnificent?
Mhm.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
one of my favorite books growing up. I think I read that book
right.
so many times. I just kept reading it. And again, I'm going to mention yet again the Green Adventures of Tycho, which I read so many times. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I read this book. And it was like this old book. Um, and it was, apparently like to read time travel books a lot because
Mhm.
timeline, you know, the Green Adventures of Tycho, like, they're all, I think
Yeah,
that's my another genre that I really love. So,
yeah, yeah. Well,
and
that's
oh,
definitely well. Oh, go ahead, honey. You finish.
no, I was gonna say, and Jackie and I both share the love for The Secret Garden.
I know. We both have the special edition book that came with the locket.
I'm gonna find, I
Oh,
probably still have the locket, so I'm gonna find it.
I think I left mine was like I kept it in the book. I couldn't like take it apart.
Hmm
It just stayed in that little like hole. I was
I,
also like the girl that had like the sticker book with all the stickers still
mhm.
stuck on their original page because I could not bring myself to take them off and put them somewhere because then they couldn't be moved again.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
And just to for The Secret Garden, there's like one line in the movie. Sorry, it's coming to me where they're like, "Where are you? I'm in the garden." I hear that in my head all the time. Um,
Or A Little Princess. Did you like that one too? I love that
Yeah.
one.
hmm
That one I was like totally up in that attic. I
Yep.
was,
Mm,
hmm Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, very much so. Well, we definitely wanted to invite all of our listeners to comment about maybe their favorite book, because we will definitely be reading all of those. And we invite you to just let us know what magic, what horror, what time travel you experienced in different books that you had at different stages of your life. And yes, it probably, just reach out. Let us know what created magic for you.
Yes. And
Mhm.
please don't forget to like, share, and comment because that helps us bring you
Very
better
much.
content. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.